December 16th, 1944. The Ardennes Forest, Belgium. Dawn's grey light filters through the skeletal branches of pine trees, heavy with fresh snow. The air bites like shattered glass, carrying the low rumble of idling engines from hidden positions along the foxholes. Sergeant Elias Kane hunkers down in his slit trench, his breath fogging the collar of his wool overcoat. The M1 Garand rifle rests across his knees, its barrel crusted with frost. Around him, the 106th Infantry Division's men of the 422nd Regiment murmur in the half-dark, their faces shadowed under steel helmets. Radios crackle faintly from the command post 50 yards back, spitting static-laced orders from higher up the chain. General Middleton's 8th Corps, stretched thin across this quiet sector of the front. You can almost taste the unease in the wind, a chill that seeps deeper than the cold. It's been quiet here for weeks, too quiet, since the push into Germany stalled. The boys call it the Ghost Front, a forgotten bulge in the line where the Wehrmacht seems to have forgotten them, but Kane knows better. Last night's patrol brought back whispers, sightings of German panzers probing the roads, Tiger tanks rumbling unseen in the valleys. His platoon, part of Company K, has dug in along the Losheim Gap, a narrow corridor of hills and woods that funnels straight toward the Meuse River. If the Krauts come, this is where they'll hit hardest. Lieutenant Harlan Voss, a lanky officer fresh from officer candidate school, crawls along the line, his boots crunching softly in the snow. "Eyes sharp, men," he whispers, his voice steady but edged with the tremor of a man who's never seen real action. "Jerry's got something brewing. Intel says they're massing armor east of the Our River." Kane nods, wiping condensation from his binoculars. Through the lenses, the tree line blurs into white nothingness, but he spots movement, a flicker of shadow that could be nothing or everything. The wind picks up, howling through the evergreens, drowning out the distant thud of artillery from sectors far to the south. Back at the regimental CP, Colonel Thomas Riggs pores over a crumpled map under the dim glow of a kerosene lantern. The tent smells of wet canvas and stale coffee. His staff officers huddle close, pencils scratching as they plot positions. Reports flood in. Patrols from the 28th Division to the south confirming unusual truck activity. POW interrogations hinting at a massive German build-up under Field Marshal Walter Model. But the higher-ups in Bastogne dismiss it as routine. Eisenhower's chef assures them the Ardennes is secure, a secondary front. Riggs isn't so sure. His division, green and under strength, mans a 20-kilometer stretch with little more than bazookas and 50-caliber machine guns to face potential panzers. The first shell whistles in at 05:30 hours, slamming into the ridge 100 yards north. Earth erupts in a geyser of snow and mud, the shockwave rattling Kane's teeth. "Incoming!" he bellows, diving deeper into the trench as the barrage intensifies. Shells from 80mm flak guns rain down, turning the forest into a cauldron of fire and smoke. Trees splinter like matchsticks, branches crashing amid the screams of wounded men. Voss grabs the field phone, yelling into it over the din. "This is King Easy, under heavy artillery. Request support." The line hisses back static, then a voice from battalion. "Hold position, it's a probe, reinforcements en route." But it's no probe. From the east, the growl of engines swells into a roar. Through the chaos, Kane peers out and sees them, dark silhouettes emerging from the mist, the squat forms of Panzer IVs and the hulking outlines of King Tigers, their treads chewing the frozen earth. Behind them, waves of grey-clad infantry in greatcoats, Sturmgewehr 44s at the ready, advance under the cover of the barrage. The 99th Division's lines to the north buckle first, but here in the 106th sector, the gap yawns wide. Kane's heart pounds as he chambers a round, the metallic click lost in the thunder. "Open fire," Voss shouts, and the line erupts. Traces from Browning M19E19s stitching the snow, bazooka rockets streaking toward the lead tanks. One panzer brews up in a gout of flame, its turret blown skyward, but the others press on. Their 75mm KWK cannons barking. A shell rips through a neighboring foxhole, silencing a machine gun nest forever. Men scramble, slipping in the slush. Their cries roar against the mechanical snarl. Kane fires deliberately, picking off a German squad leader closing on the wire, but the enemy pours through like water through a sieve. Flashes illuminate faces twisted in terror. Private Ruiz clutching his side, blood staining the snow red. Corporal Hale manning the .30 caliber. His bursts defiant until a burst of MG42 fire cuts him down. By 0600, the command tent is a frenzy. Riggs slams his fist on the table. They're everywhere. The 423rd reports flanks turned. Tell division we're pulling back to the Schnee-Eifel line. But the radios jam with interference. German commandos already slicing lines with portable jammers. Voss receives the fragmented order. Retreat to assembly points west, consolidate. Fall back, he relays to Kane, his voice cracking. Regroup at the crossroads. Move. Kane hesitates, glancing at the onrushing tide. The line holds for a heartbeat, men withdrawing in ragged bounds. But the panzers exploit the chaos, grinding over abandoned positions. In the span of those frantic minutes, foxholes empty, weapons caches left behind. The forest swallows the retreat, snow muffling the footfalls of the survivors. Yet as Kane crests a rise, looking back, he sees it. The defensive line, once a solid wall of American steel, dissolving into nothing. Shadows and smoke where brothers fought moments ago. If you want to hear how this nightmare unfolded next, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories from the front lines. The wind carries echoes of gunfire, fading but relentless, as the German spearhead pushes deeper into the Ardennes, the bulge beginning to form. The snow clings to Elias Kane's boots like wet cement as he stumbles westward through the Ardennes undergrowth, the forest a labyrinth of frozen thorns and deceptive drifts. It's 06:15 hours now, and the world has narrowed to the crunch of his own footsteps, the labored breaths of his squad, and the sporadic whip-crack of sniper fire chasing them from the tree line. Private Ruiz leans on him, his wound a hot seep through Kane's glove, turning the sergeant's grip slick and desperate. "Keep moving, kid," Kane mutters, his voice a gravel rasp lost in the wind. Behind them, the rumble of panzers fades into a predatory growl, but the infantry follows. Fallschirmjäger paratroopers, elite and relentless, slipping through the woods like wolves. Lieutenant Voss leads the ragged file, his map case banging against his hip, compass needles spinning wildly from the magnetic interference of the German advance. "Crossroads at grid 47-29, he hisses over his shoulder, but doubt creeps into his tone. The platoon, down to 20 men from 38, threads a narrow trail parallel to the Our River, the water a frozen ribbon snaking below. Explosions bloom in the distance, orange blossoms against the slate sky as the 422nd's other companies fragment under the assault. Kane risks a glance back. Through the haze, he sees the Losheim Gap vomiting more steel, Stuggy 3 assault guns churning the earth, their low-slung hulls impervious to small arms fire. The American line, that fragile string of foxholes, is gone, erased in the blitz of those 8 fateful minutes since the retreat call. You feel it in your chest, that hollow thump of isolation, as if the war has swallowed the world whole. Radios are dead weight now. Kane's SCR 536 walkie-talkie spits only static, jammed by the enemy's cunning. Up ahead, Voss halts at a frozen stream, the men piling up like cordwood. "Form a perimeter," the lieutenant orders, his face pale under the helmet rim. They drop into hasty scrapes, scraping away snow with entrenching tools that bite like dull knives into the iron-hard ground. Corporal Hale's replacement, a wiry kid named Petrov from Brooklyn, sets up the bar, its bipod sinking into the drift. "They'll be on us in 10, Kane warns, chambering another clip into his Garand. The air smells of cordite and pine sap, sharp and acrid, mingling with the metallic tang of fear sweat. At the regimental command post, relocated in haste to a bombed-out farmhouse on the Schnee-Eifel Ridge, Colonel Riggs fights to reclaim order from chaos. The tent flaps whip in the gusts, snow sifting through the seams onto the operations table. Maps are a mess of red pencils and frantic annotations, positions marked, then crossed out as reports confirm the 423rd Regiment's encirclement east of the river. "Damn it! Where's division?" Riggs bellows into the field phone, its wire snaking out to a jeep-mounted antenna. Major Buchanan, his S3 operations officer, shakes his head, face etched with exhaustion. "Lines are cut, sir. Last from 8 Corps. Hold the high ground. Link with the 28th Division south. But the 99th is falling back too. The whole sector's unraveling." Riggs paces, his boots thudding on the frozen floorboards. The 106th, his Golden Lions, were meant for occupation duty, not this maelstrom. Fresh divisions, many officers like Voss, straight from stateside training, armed with standard issue but no winter gear beyond overcoats and galoshes that slip on ice. Intel had failed them. Ultra-decrypts missed this. Hitler's last gamble, Operation Wacht am Rhein, a surprise thrust with 20 divisions, including the 5th and 6th Panzer Armies, under Manteuffel and Dietrich. Riggs knows the stakes. If the panzers reach the Meuse, Antwerp falls, and the Allied supply line snaps. But here, on this exposed ridge, his men are bait, clinging to a salient that juts like a thumb into German territory. Back in the woods, the pursuit closes in. A burst of Schmeisser fire rakes the streambed, chipping ice and forcing Petrov to duck. "Contact!" Kane yells, sighting down his rifle. He squeezes off shots. The Garand's recoil, a familiar jolt, dropping a paratrooper mid-stride, camouflage smock blooming red against the white. But they come in numbers, probing flanks with grenades that arc like deadly fireflies. Voss fires his Colt, in 45 one-handed, the other clutching the radio. "This is King Easy, requesting artillery, over." Static answers, then a faint echo. "Negative. All batteries engage south. Break contact and withdraw to Schnee-Eifel." The order hits like a gut punch. "Withdraw again?" Kane's mind races, ammunition low, Ruiz fading, the platoon a shadow of itself. "You heard him! Fall back by bounds!" Voss commands, his voice steadier now, forged in the crucible. They leapfrog rearward, covering each other in short rushes, the forest echoing with the chatter of MP40s and the deeper cough of Kar-98Ks. A Tiger tank's engine snarls closer, its Maybach motor a beast awakening, treads pulverizing saplings. Kane spots it through the birches, 70 tons of sloped armor, the Rhine metal monster with its 88mm gun traversing lazily. No bazooka here. Their last rocketman bought it in the initial barrage. Private Ruiz collapses at the base of a pine, his breath ragged plumes. "Go on, Sarge. I'll cover." Kane kneels, pressing a compress to the wound, but blood wells through. "Not leaving you." In that suspended moment, as bullets whine overhead, Kane sees the war's cruel math. One man slows the group, invites death for all. He hauls Ruiz up, slinging the kid's arm over his shoulder, and they push on, the platoon coalescing around them like survivors of a shipwreck. By 0800, they crest the ridge, the Schnee-Eifel line materializing as a hasty bulwark, trenches half dug, anti-tank guns from the 589th Field Artillery Battalion slewing into position, 57mm M1s, their crews cursing the cold-jammed breaches. Voss reports in, breathless, to a major from battalion. "Company K, remnants, lost half to the gap." The officer nods grimly, pointing to the east where smoke pillars the horizon. "Dig in. The Krauts'll hit here next. CCB of the 9th Armored's en route from the west, but fuel's tight. Eisenhower's calling it a bulge already." Kane slides into a trench beside Petrov, the earth cold as a grave against his back. Shells begin to fall again, lighter now, ranging the ridge. He thinks of home, Philly streets, his sister's letters, but the roar pulls him back. The Germans aren't done. Scouts report Kampfgruppe Piper's SS Vanguard slicing north, their half-tracks laden with fuel drums stolen from the Allies. The retreat bought time, but the noose tightens. As dusk gathers early under the overcast, a flare pops skyward, bathing the line in ghostly magnesium light, and Kane wonders if dawn will find them still holding, or if the bulge will swallow them whole. The magnesium flare hangs in the sky like a dying star, casting jagged shadows across the Schnee-Eifel ridge, where the remnants of the 106th Infantry Division claw at the frozen soil to deepen their trenches. Elias Kane presses his back against the icy wall of his foxhole, the chill seeping through his overcoat like fingers probing for weakness. Beside him, Private Petrov hunches over the Browning automatic rifle, his fingers numb as he feeds a fresh belt into the mechanism, the brass links clinking softly in the gathering dark. The air hums with tension, thick as the smoke from distant fires, carrying the faint, acrid bite of high explosives mingled with the evergreen sharpness of the forest. Ruiz lies bundled in a shelter half nearby, his face ashen, morphine syringe spent, murmuring incoherently about his mother's tamales back in El Paso. You can feel the earth's subtle tremor underfoot, a harbinger of the storm brewing east of the ridge, the mechanical heartbeat of approaching armor. Maybach engines straining against the snow-choked roads. Lieutenant Voss paces the line, a silhouette etched in the flare's glow, his Colt holstered, but his eyes darting to every shadow. "Stay low, watch your sectors," he whispers to the men, his voice threaded with the raw edge of command under fire. The platoon, now a patchwork of survivors from Company K, shares the trench with stragglers from the 423rd. Ghostly figures with bandaged heads and haunted stares, their rifles clutched like talismans. To the north, the 424th Regiment holds the high ground's flank, their 50-caliber guns chattering sporadically at probing scouts, but the center feels exposed, a thin crust over the bulge's maw. At the regimental CP in the ruined farmhouse, Colonel Riggs stands over the radio operator, the set's vacuum tubes glowing like embers in the dimness. Snow dusts his shoulders, and the room reeks of kerosene and unwashed fear. "Get me division. Tell them we're forming a pocket here," he snaps, his map a battlefield of eraser shavings and fresh overlays. Major Buchanan relays the fragments. The 2nd Panzer Division's spearheads have overrun the 14th Cavalry Group, screening the Losheim Gap, their Panzer Eifers and Jagdpanzers slicing through like hot knives. Veit Corps is blind. Communications severed by German saboteurs in American uniforms, their jeeps and accents fooling sentries before the knives come out. Eisenhower's mobilizing the 101st to Bastogne, Buchanan adds, but we're on our own for now. The 589th's 105mm howitzers are zeroed on the approaches. Buy us time. Riggs nods, jaw set like granite. His division, the Golden Lions, bears the brunt of Hitler's Ardennes offensive, Wacht am Rhein unfolding in a blitz of deception and fury. 20 German divisions, 400 artillery pieces, 100 tanks against his green troops, many still clutching Christmas packages from home. The Schnee-Eifel salient that doomed Thumb of Land traps them, the Our River to the east, the Somme to the west, Germans closing the jaws. "No retreat this time," Riggs declares. "We hold or we die here." But doubt gnaws. Reports from the 99th Division confirm their lines shattered. Piper's SS Kampfgruppe racing for the Amblev bridges, fuel-starved but ferocious. Night falls heavy by 1900 hours, the ridge a ribbon of flickering foxhole candles, matches cupped against the wind to light cigarettes that burn too fast. Kane peers through his binoculars, the lenses fogging with his breath, scanning the eastern slope where the tree line dissolves into blackness. A snap of twigs, then silence. "Eyes open," he murmurs to Petrov, who nods, the bar's barrel trained like a hound on point. The wind dies, leaving an unnatural hush, broken only by the distant wail of a German Nebelwerfer rocket launcher. Screaming Mimis, the men call them, their banshee howl preceding the rain of 150mm rockets. The barrage erupts at 1930, a symphony of hell, rockets streaking in parabolic fury, detonating in cascades of shrapnel that shred the pines and pepper the trenches. Kane dives as dirt avalanches over him, the blast wave slamming his helmet like a hammer. "Down!" Voss yells, but it's swallowed by the thunder. Petrov screams as a fragment tears his shoulder, blood spraying hot across Kane's arm. The line convulses, men clawing for cover, a 57mm anti-tank gun crew vaporized in a direct hit, its twisted barrel pointing skyward like an accusation. Ruiz stirs weakly, eyes wide at the chaos, before a near miss buries him in snow. From the smoke they come, shadows detaching into forms, grenadiers of the 277th Volksgrenadier Division, whitewashed helmets low, advancing in fire teams with MG-42s chattering at 200 rounds per minute. Behind, the growl of half-tracks, KFZ 251s disgorging more troops, their 20mm flak guns swiveling to suppress. Kane rises, firing from the hip, the Garand barking in semi-auto bursts. Two Krauts tumble, but a third flanks, lobbing a potato masher grenade that bounces off the trench lip. It explodes in a flash of yellow, shrapnel whining, and Voss crumples, clutching his leg, blood pooling dark. "Medic!" Kane roars, dragging Voss deeper as Petrov lays down covering fire, the bar's muzzle flash strobing the night. The ridge erupts into close-quarters frenzy. Bayonets clash in the wire, grenades trade like curses, the air thick with the coppery reek of blood and the ozone snap of tracers. To the south, the 423rd's positions flare with muzzle bursts, but the Germans envelop, their artillery walking the barrage westward, isolating pockets. Kane's world shrinks to the fight, reloading under fire. The Garand's en-bloc clip, pinging empty, his hands raw from the cold metal. He spots a Sturmpanzer IV lumbering up the slope, its 380mm rocket mortar belching fire, cratering the American line 50 yards away. Voss, pale and propped against the wall, waves him off the radio. "Tell battalion, we're holding the center." But the static-laced reply from Riggs is grim. "Flanks turned, 423rd surrounded. Prepare to link with 424th at dawn. No further withdrawal." Kane feels the noose, the salient shrinking as panzers probe the gaps. Petrov slumps, hit again, the bar falling silent. Alone now with Voss and a handful of others, Kane fights on, picking shots through the melee, each trigger pull a defiance against the tide. By midnight, the assault ebbs, the Germans pulling back to regroup under the moonless sky. But the ridge is a slaughterhouse, bodies twisted in the snow, the moans of the wounded, a chorus against the wind. Kane binds Voss's wound with a strip from his own shirt. The lieutenant's eyes, fever-bright. "We bought time, Sarge. But how much?" Smoke curls from the east, where fires rage unchecked. And in the quiet, Kane hears the distant clank of treads reforming. The bulge deepens, the pocket tightens, and as the first grey light hints at the horizon, he knows the real hammer falls at dawn, whether they stand or shatter. Dawn creeps over the Schnee-Eifel ridge like a reluctant witness, painting the snow in pale blues and greys. The first light glinting off spent shell casings scattered like brass confetti across the churned earth. Elias Kane shifts in the trench, his muscles screaming from the night's vigil, the Garand's stock worn smooth against his shoulder from endless checks. The air hangs heavy with the stench of cordite and charred wood, undercut by the sharper reek of blood-soaked bandages. Lieutenant Voss leans against the revetment, his legs splinted with a rifle stock and strips of wool, morphine dulling the pain to a distant throb. "Dawn patrol?" Voss murmurs, his voice a threadbare whisper, eyes scanning the eastern haze, where the German lines simmer like a pot about to boil over. Private Petrov's body lies covered under a poncho nearby, frost already rimming the edges, a silent testament to the bar's last defiant roar. Kane's squad, now just him, Voss, and 4 others from the 422nd's remnants, huddles in the scar of their foxhole, ammunition scraped from the dead. A few clips for the Garand, a crate of 30 .06 rounds pried from a wrecked machine gun nest. To the flanks, the 424th Regiment's positions stir, their sentries calling low challenges, but the centre feels hollow. The 423rd encircled and screaming over jammed radios for a breakout that never comes. You sense it in the stillness, that fragile pause before the storm, the way the wind carries the faint clatter of German entrenching tools, the low mutter of orders in guttural tones. At the regimental command post, Colonel Riggs hunches over the field phone in the farmhouse's shell-pocked kitchen, the line crackling like dry leaves underfoot. Snow drifts through the shattered window, melting into puddles on the map table where red arrows mark the noose. The 2nd Panzer Division's claws digging in from the north, the 116th Panzers from the south, the salient shrinking to a 10-kilometer trap. Bataille Corps. This is Lion 6. Request immediate air support? Riggs barks, but the operator's voice fades in static. Negative, Colonel. Weather's socked in. P-47's grounded at least till noon. Major Buchanan, nursing a cigarette that burns down to his knuckles, points to intercepts from the 106th Signal Unit, German radio traffic buzzing with coordinates for the 277th Volksgrenadiers' morning push, backed by the 560th Heavy Anti-Tank Battalion's 88mm pack guns. Riggs straightens, his face a mask of weathered resolve, the Golden Lion's insignia on his helmet dulled by grime. The division's fate hangs on this ridge. 7,000 men, many like Kane's platoon roar from stateside barracks, facing Sepp Dietrich's 6th SS Panzer Army with little more than M1 rifles, 57 MiT anti-tank guns that struggle in the cold, and the 508 9th Field Artillery's howitzers, their barrels frosted and ammo low. Hitler's gamble, Wacht am Rhein, exploits the Ardennes quiet. No Allied air cover in this overcast hell, fuel dumps ripe for the taking, the Meuse just 50 kilometers west. Tell the 424th to shift right, plug the gap, Riggs orders, and get word to CCB, 9th Armoured. If they don't punch through by 1,000, we're done. The assault shatters the dawn at 06:30 hours, a thunderous crescendo from the east. Nebelwerfers howl again, their rockets arcing in fiery trails, slamming into the ridge with earth-shaking fury. Kane ducks as shrapnel peppers the trench lip, a fragment slicing his cheek like a razor kiss, warm blood trickling into his collar. "Here they come," he yells, sighting through the smoke. The tree line erupts with movement, Volksgrenadiers in snow smocks charging in extended order, their MG-42s stitching the snow with leaden fury, supported by Stugger 3 assault guns that lurch forward, their 75mm guns belching flame. Behind, a King Tiger lumbers into view, its interleaved wheels grinding the frozen ruts. The behemoth's 88mm cannon traversing with a hydraulic whine. Voss grabs the radio, fingers fumbling the handset. "King easy to Lion actual. Under attack. Center sector. Need artillery now." The reply crackles through. "Fires mission inbound. Hold 5 mics." But 5 minutes is an eternity. Kane fires steadily, the Garand's recoil a rhythmic punch, dropping a grenadier mid-leap, his body tumbling into a drift. Beside him, Private Ellis, a lanky farm boy from Iowa, mans the last 60mm mortar, dropping rounds into the tube with trembling hands. The base plate sinks in the soft snow, rounds veering wild. A Stooges shell rips through their flank, obliterating a neighboring position in a fireball, screams cut short by the roar. The Germans close the gap with ruthless precision. Fire teams bounding forward under smoke screens from 15cm NBW-41 launchers. Kane feels the press, the air alive with the zip of bullets and the crunch of boots on crust. He bayonets a paratrooper who vaults the trench, the steel grating bone, hot breath mingling in the kill. Voss fires his Thompson submachine gun one-handed, the 45 slugs chewing through a smock at point blank. But a burst from an MP-40 catches Ellis in the chest, the mortar silent forever. "Fall back to the secondary line," Voss gasps, but there's no secondary, just the ridge's bald crown, exposed and bleeding. From the CP, Riggs hears the bedlam over the wire, the 424th reporting flanks overrun. The 423rd's colonel pleading for a relief column that doesn't exist. Buchanan tallies the losses, 2 battalions mauled, anti-tank screens shattered by Tiger AUSF, B heavies that no bazooka can dent at range. "The salient's collapsing, sir. The 2nd Panzer's linking with the Hun 16th. We're encircled." Riggs slams the table, maps crumpling. "Not yet. Signal all units. Fight to the last. Eisenhower's 30th Corps is shifting north. Hold for 24 hours. But the math is merciless. German paratroopers, Operation Stüsse dropping behind lines to seize bridges. Piper's SS Vanguard, 20 kilometers west already, their half-tracks laden with captured American fuel. Kane hauls Voss rearward through the melee, dragging him over shell craters. The lieutenants wait a dead drag. Bullets pluck at their heels. The ridge a cauldron of hand-to-hand slaughter. Americans with fixed bayonets against German pioneers, wielding flamethrowers that paint the snow black. A final artillery salvo from the 589th walks the line, 105mm shells bursting in the German ranks, buying a ragged breath. By 0800, the survivors coalesce on the reverse slope, a pocket within the pocket, maybe 200 from the regiment. Kane props Voss against a boulder, the lieutenant's eyes glazing. "Ruiz, Petrov?" Voss asks. Kane shakes his head, the words sticking. Smoke chokes the valley below, panzers consolidating, their engines idling like predators at rest. The encirclement seals by noon, radios falling silent as German jammers blanket the airwaves. Kane stares west, where the Somme River gleams like a silver noose. The bulge's jaws snapping shut. Whispers ripple through the huddle. Surrender or fight on. The 106th stand turning to siege. But in the din, a faint crackle. A jeep-mounted SCR-284 from a combat engineer unit breaking through. "This is Dog Baker. Link-up attempted at 1400. Hold fast." Hope flickers, fragile as a match in the wind, as the afternoon shadows lengthen. The Germans probing anew. And Kane chambers his last round, the war's grind etching deeper into his soul. The afternoon sun struggles through the overcast like a feeble lantern, casting watery light over the reverse slope of the Schnee-Eifel Ridge, where the ragged knot of the 106th survivors digs in with bayonets and bare hands. Elias Kane wipes sweat and grime from his brow, the cut on his cheek crusted with frozen blood. His Garand's bolt, slick from constant cycling, the air tastes of damp wool and gun oil, laced with the faint, sickly sweet rot from bodies too hastily covered in the no-man's land below. Lieutenant Voss sits propped against the boulder, his splinted leg extended like a broken spar, sipping from a canteen that's more frost than water. That radio crackle, Dog Baker's link-up, Voss says, his voice a laboured wheeze, eyes fixed on the western tree line where the Somme River murmurs its indifferent flow. Around them, the pocket, maybe 150 men now, a mix of 422nd and 424th stragglers, forms a hasty perimeter, foxholes scraped into the shale, a pair of 50-caliber guns salvaged from wrecked jeeps, their crews shivering as they test the mounts. You hear it first in the distance, that insidious rumble, the panzers repositioning, treads gnashing like millstones, the 2nd Panzer Division's Mark Visses probing the salient's edges with calculated menace. Kane scans through his binoculars, the lenses smeared but revealing flashes. A column of Sun KFZ, 250 half-tracks snaking along the frozen road from Blyalf disgorging engineers with Bangalore torpedoes to blast any wire. To the south, the 116th Panzer's reconnaissance elements, sleek Puma armored cars with 50mm guns, skirt the 424th's flank, drawing fire that echoes like thunderclaps. The encirclement is ironclad now, the bulge's jaws locked. 7,000 golden lions trapped in a 5 by 10 kilometer kill zone, radios reduced to whispers amid the German jamming, their signals drowned in a sea of static from portable Few-G sets. At the makeshift CP, shifted to a bombed-out barn on the pocket's rear, Colonel Riggs pores over a tattered operations map by flashlight, the beam cutting shadows across faces gaunt with hunger. The air inside is thick with pipe smoke and the tang of spilled coffee from a dented pot. Major Buchanan relays the latest from a courier jeep that barely slipped through. Veit Corps confirms the 101st Airborne's digging in at Bastogne, 20 kilometers southwest, but the 9th Armored CCB is bogged. Fuel convoys ambushed by Piper's SS, their Shermans idling on fumes. Riggs's fist clenches, knuckles white. The 423rd Regiment, fully ringed east of the hour, signals surrender imminent. Colonel Desibry's men out of ammo, surrounded by the 62nd Volksgrenadiers 88mm Pak fronts. That link-up at 1400 better come, Riggs growls. Tell the 424th to hold the southern spur, no matter the cost, and get the 589th's last howitzers firing blind on those coordinates. The probe begins at 13:30. A feint from the north. Artillery spotters calling in 105mm rounds from the 18th Volksgrenadier Division. Shells whistling in lazy arcs to soften the crust. Kane feels the ground shudder as one lands 30 yards short, showering the trench with rocky shrapnel that pings off helmets like hail. Heads down, he barks, pulling Voss lower as the barrage walks closer, cratering the slope in geysers of mud and ice. Private Ellis's replacement, a scrawny radio man named Tate from the 81st Engineer Battalion attached to the division, clutches the SCR-284, antenna whipping in the wind. Lion Actual, this is Pocket Elements, Krauts ranging request counter-battery. Static hisses back, then a faint affirmative. The 589th's guns cough in response. Their 190mm M2A1 howitzers belching from hidden drawers 2 miles west, rounds screaming eastward to stitch the German rear. But the real thrust comes from the east, infantry heavy, companies from the 277th Volksgrenadier, white camouflaged ghosts slipping through the pines, their Kar-98K rifles cracking sharp in the chill, supported by a battery of 75mm PK-40 anti-tank guns towed by Stender's KFZs. 7 tractors that belch diesel fumes visible even at range. Kane sights a squad leader, the man's greatcoat flapping as he waves forward and squeezes the trigger, the Garand bucks, the figure crumpling into the snow. "They're testing us," Voss mutters, fumbling for his Thompson, its drum magazine half empty. The 50 cal in the next hole opens up, tracers arcing like fiery comets. Raking a half-track that slews off the road in flames, its 20mm cannon silenced mid-burst. At 1400 sharp, the link-up attempt materializes. A roar from the west, engines straining as Combat Command B's M4A3 Shermans punch through the tree line, their 76mm guns traversing, escorted by M10 Wolverine tank destroyers from the 776th TD Battalion. Jeeps with 30 cal mounted buzz ahead. Troops from the 3rd Battalion, 424th, waving signals. Hope surges like a jolt. Kane rises halfway, yelling, "Relief's here! Hold fire!" But the Germans anticipate, their spotters calling in a storm, 150mm SFH-18 heavy howitzers from the 116th Panzer's Artillery Regiment, shells marching in with devastating precision. One Sherman brews up in a secondary explosion, its turret blown aside, while the Wolverine's open tops make easy targets for MG-42 nests hidden in the drifts. The counterattack falters in minutes, the relief column shredded by flanking fire from Jagdpanzer IVs that emerge like spectres from the south, their 75mm guns punching through thin armor at 500 yards. American drivers reverse in panic, treads spinning futilely in the slush. As German pioneers close with flamethrowers, jets of flame turning jeeps into pyres. Tate's radio erupts with screams. "This is CCB, taking heavy losses, pulling back." Kane watches through the binoculars as the survivors retreat, leaving burning hulks as grave markers, the link-up dream shattered. "Bastards!" Voss spits, pain etching his features. The probe intensifies in response. Volksgrenadiers surging forward under smoke, grenades sailing into the perimeter like dark omens. Kane fights with mechanical fury, the Garand overheating in his hands, each shot a deliberate cull, 3 down before a ricochet clips his shoulder, burning like hot iron. Tate falls next, a sniper's round through the throat, the radio handset clattering into the mud. Voss drags himself up, firing the Thompson in short bursts, but the line buckles. The southern spur of the 424th collapses under a Tiger's onslaught, its 80mm shell vaporizing a 50 cal crew in a flash of orange. By 1500, the pocket contracts, men falling back to a final knoll, ammunition ebbing to desperation, last bazooka rounds fired point-blank at a Stug that grinds over the wire, its hull scarred but unbreached. Riggs from the barn hears the rout over the dwindling wires. 424th flanked, pocket halved. 423rd surrendered at 1600. 8-0 Krauts claimed. His voice breaks as he orders, "Fight to extricate, small groups west to the Somme." But escape is illusion. Patrols report bridges wired, Fallschirmjäger patrols sealing the riverbanks. Kane hauls Voss toward the knoll's crest. The lieutenants weight a crushing burden, bullets whispering past like vengeful spirits. 2 more from the squad buy it in the rush. A burst from an FG-42 tearing through a medic's pack. Alone now, Kane lowers Voss into a scrape. The ridge a tableau of ruin, smoke pillars twisting skyward, the bulge's heart pulsing with German triumph. As twilight bleeds into the sky, the probes ease, the enemy content to tighten the vise with patrols and ranging fire. Kane rations his last clip, the metal cold against his palm, staring into the gathering dark where shadows promise no mercy. Voss is breathing shallows, fever claiming him, and in the hush, Kane wonders if the night will bring relief or the final order to lay down arms. The golden lions stand reduced to echoes in the snow. The wind rises, carrying the faint clank of chains from the east, and the noose draws ever tighter. Twilight deepens over the Schnee Eifel pocket like a shroud. The sky bruising purple as the last light fades from the frozen knoll where Elias Kane kneels beside Lieutenant Voss. The wind howls through the pines, whipping snow into stinging veils that blur the eastern horizon, where the faint clank of tank chains echoes like the tolling of a distant bell. Kane's shoulder throbs from the graze, a dull fire under the hasty field, dressing torn from his shirt-tail. But he ignores it, focusing on Voss's shallow breaths, ragged plumes that mist the chill air. The lieutenant's face is slick with sweat despite the cold, fever lines etching deeper into his skin, his splintered leg a swollen ruin. "Sarge, water," Voss croaks, and Kane tips the canteen, the last drops trickling past cracked lips. Around them, the remnants of the 106th huddle in the deepening gloom. Maybe 80 souls now, a fractured mosaic of the Golden Lions. Engineers from the 81st Battalion clutching demo charges like futile talismans. Infantrymen from the 424th with bayonets fixed to empty rifles. Artillery spotters from the 589th whose howitzers fell silent hours ago, barrels warped from overuse. The perimeter is a ragged circle of scrapes and barricades, overturned jeeps, felled logs, the twisted wreckage of a M10 Wolverine that tried and failed to breach the German ring. You taste the desperation in the air, metallic and thick, mingled with the acrid bite of unburnt powder from sporadic flares that pop overhead, bathing the snow in harsh white before guttering out. Kane peers into the dark, his ears straining for any sign of the promised breakout. Radios are relics now. Tate's SCR-284 lies shattered, its antenna snapped like a wishbone. Whispers circulate among the men, rumors of the 423rd's mass surrender at 1600 hours. Over 4 Zeuzeren prisoners marched east under the 62nd Volksgrenadiers Guard, their officers lined up for interrogation by the Gestapo. Colonel Riggs's voice, faint over a courier's relay earlier, had carried the weight of finality. Small groups west. Avoid capture if you can. The bulge holds, but we're the price. Kane's mind reels with the scale. The entire division encircled, Hitler's Wacht am Rhein carving a 60-kilometer deep wound in the Allied lines. Piper's SS Kampfgruppe just miles away, their half-tracks rumbling toward Stavelot with stolen fuel drums sloshing. The night fractures at 2,000 hours with a guttural roar from the south. The 116th Panzer Division's Tigers probing the pocket's underbelly, their interleaved road wheels pulverizing the crust as searchlights stabbed the dark like accusatory fingers. Engines snarl, the Maybach HL-230s coughing blue exhaust into the wind, followed by the staccato chatter of MG-34 coaxials raking the tree line. Kane drops low, grabbing Voss's Thompson. The drum empty, but a scavenged 20-round stick magazine clicks home. "Incoming!" he hisses, the word rippling through the huddle like a chill. Men scramble to positions, the 50 caliber on the jeep mount belching defiance, its tracers stitching the night toward the behemoths. A shell from a Tiger's 88mm KWK-43 screams in, detonating 20 yards short, the blast wave hurling snow and shale in a gritty blizzard that buries a pair of engineers alive. Voss stirs, gripping Kane's arm with surprising strength. "Don't let 'em take us, Sarge. Fight through." But his eyes betray the lie. Glassy, distant, the morphine's edge blunted by pain. Kane nods, sighting down the Thompson's sights as German pioneers advance in the shadows. Their FG-42 assault rifles barking in controlled bursts, silhouetted against the tank lights. He squeezes the trigger. The submachine guns recoil a stuttering hammer, mowing down 2 who breach the wire with wire cutters glinting. Beside him, a sergeant from the 424th mans a bazooka, the rocket streaking orange toward a Tiger's flank. Impact blooms in a jet of flame, but the heavy armor shrugs it off. The shot, glancing into the snow with a hiss. Return fire rakes the knoll, a PK-40's 75mm round, vaporizing the 50 cal crew in a red mist. The gun falling silent forever. The assault is methodical, not frenzied. The 277th Volksgrenadiers companies enveloping under cover of smoke pots that belch choking clouds, their half-tracks, KFFs. 251s with mounted 37mm guns, depositing troops who fan out in fire teams. Kane feels the squeeze, the pocket shrinking as southern flanks crumble, screams piercing the din as a flamethrower jet turns a foxhole into an inferno, the acrid stench of burning wool and flesh carried on the wind. He drags Voss rearward, inching toward a boulder cluster that offers scant cover, bullets plucking at the ground like vengeful fingers. "Keep low," Kane yells, but Voss slumps heavier, a fresh wound seeping from his side, shrapnel, unseen until now. From the barn CP, Colonel Riggs clutches the field phone's last tenuous line to a forward observer, the wire frayed and sparking. "All units disperse and evade. No more stands." His voice cracks. The Golden Lion's commander, reduced to whispers in the dark. Major Buchanan, bandaged from a splinter, tallies the end. 6, 0 captured or killed, the salients fall, sealing the 106th's doom, buying time for Patton's Third Army to pivot north from Lorraine. But here in the Vice, it's personal. Riggs's own runner returns bloodied, reporting the 424th's colonel bayoneted in the melee, his regiment splintered into knots like canes. By 2200, the knoll is a charnel house, the Germans consolidating with floodlights sweeping for holdouts. Kane's group, down to a dozen, slips into a gully, Voss a dead weight now, his pulse fluttering under Kane's fingers. The lieutenant's eyes meet his one last time. "Tell my folks." I tried. Then stillness. Kane chokes back the bile, covering Voss with his overcoat, the fabric stiff with frost. Alone with the survivors, they melt into the woods, a ragged file threading west toward the Somme, evading patrols whose schmeissers crackle in pursuit. Flares illuminate their flight, casting long shadows, but the river's gleam offers no salvation. Bridges held by Fallschirmjäger, their MG-42's nests guarding the crossings. Dawn of December 17 finds Kane and 5 others fording the icy Somme shallows, the current a numbing vice around their waists, rifles held high. Bullets splash behind, a patrol closing, but they gain the far bank, collapsing in the underbrush as the bulge's roar fades to a muffled thunder. Word spreads later, the 106th shattered, 800 prisoners in German hands. The line vanished not just in 8 minutes, but in the relentless grind of the night. Kane stares east, the forest a white void, the war's scar etched deep. The Ardennes bleeds on, but for the Golden Lions, the retreat's echo lingers. A ghost front turned grave, sacrifices swallowed by the snow.